me make sure my recording is working. Okay, everything is good. All right, folks. Welcome everybody to 52 Living Ideas. Today we have a special presentation by Steve Thomas on extreme mindfulness, and I'm really looking forward to it. This has been postponed a couple of times. I'm glad that finally we're doing this. So take it away, Steve.
Okay, really good. Okay, so I'm really looking forward to sharing with you guys. I feel like I've developed some friendships here kind of over this long distance. And so I'm going to go ahead and begin some slides. I guess what we're going to do here at first is we're going to just do a little introduction, and I want to teach you guys a meditation. I think it's probably something that you haven't seen before. So we'll see, won't we? All righty, good.
As Steve is starting the slides, let me just tell you that the format today is Steve is going to present first about this technique. Then we are going to go into breakout rooms to try it out and to talk about it. Then we'll come back. You'll get to share your takeaways from this meditation technique. Then Steve is going to present the second part, which is going to be on extreme mindfulness. And then we'll do kind of final Q&A and final takeaways. All right, so over to you, Steve.
Good, thank you. So the question I put out a little, Shrikant asked me, and I put out a thing. What happens when you combine Transcendental Meditation with Clinical Hypnotherapy, with Self-hypnosis, with Silva Mind Control, some of you have heard of that, with Native American spirituality, with yoga, with quantum mechanics, and with the Prajnaparamita Heart Sutra that is explained so well by Thich Nhat Hanh. If you guys have read this book, The Heart of Understanding, this is a really perfect conversation about emptiness is form and form is emptiness. And that's really the essence of mind at rest. And of course, a lot of what I learned, although I did Transcendental Meditation, I've done all of these things for decades. And I took Vipassana. I've done 26 Vipassana workshops, which is a 10-day meditation with a 9-day vow of silence. And having done 26 of those, I kind of got it, what's going on. I've done 3 Satipatthana, 8-day workshops as well. And I keep going, I keep talking to people, hey, what'd you get out of Vipassana? And they didn't get it. So maybe I'm getting something really weird. There's Joseph trying to get in. Maybe they didn't get it. Maybe I got something weird, but let's see what goes on. So our main objective tonight, the most important thing I want to do is teach you guys a Hermetic meditation called Mind at Rest. This is a very simple meditation, but it's the way to experience enlightenment in 30-second intervals. Picture that. Actually be enlightened for 30 seconds and be aware that you're enlightened for that 30 seconds. And I want to really thank a guy named Peter Bruce, who was a quantum biologist at the University of Utah back in the 80s when it was a new thing. And I'm grateful. If you know Peter, have him contact me. Here's our goal tonight. I want to show you how to break the chains of your habitual behavior. I want to show you how to interrupt your subconscious programming. And as a result, find your unique potential and your unique purpose. I got slide numbers down here. If you want to keep track of the slide numbers, perhaps you can refer to those. We can go back and ask questions later. What I want to share with you is this idea of extreme mindfulness. And it's really, extreme mindfulness is a composite of this idea of quantum mechanics and how it relates to being a human being. So we're really talking about quantum biology, and we're talking about the yin and yang of everything. And you'll see later on that I'm even going to talk about chakras or energy centers in the advanced session. And I've come to see that that the Platonic solids, sacred geometry, yin-yang, they're all saying the same thing as quantum mechanics. And I hope to present that to you in a way that allows you to actually have an experience of emptiness. And we're going to do that tonight. I'm so excited. So as full disclosure, I was blessed as a medicine man with the Oklahoma Native American Church. My medicine name is Sun Serpent Walking. I have a great story about how that happened. But that's not so important. What's important is that you get something out of this. The reason why I come back to Native American spirituality is Buddhism is great, Hinduism is great, quantum mechanics is great, but it's so complicated. And the Native American spirituality is all about walking the talk. It's all about walking on the planet Earth. And when you leave this tonight, I want you to be able to walk, to actually do something different than you did before. And as a result, we're going to be talking about mind at rest, which is enlightenment in 30-second intervals. We're going to be talking about extreme mindfulness. And then the very advanced part is what I call extreme speech. The Buddha pointed out in his 5 precepts that right speech is critical. And I'm totally convinced that the ambiguity in my life, my confusion is directly dependent on the words that come out of my mouth. And I'll talk about that at the end. So here's the key, guys. This is what I've learned. The goal is to come out of the brain box. The goal is to come out of that thing we call the brain and shift to mind. That's the goal. The brain is filled with labels. The mind is filled with vision, with awareness. And I want you to experience that tonight. So listen to my presentation like you'd watch a movie like Star Wars or Star Trek or Batman. All these slides are available in a PDF file. You can nitpick this, but what I want you to do literally is learn how to go into a quantum reality. Learn how to live your life as the observer. The observer is the cause. And we'll just see if that works. The ground rules here is extreme mindfulness is the unbelief system. Everything is a tool, a metaphor. It's a stepping stone. If it doesn't work, throw it away. But here's the caution. All beliefs are limiting beliefs. All beliefs are incomplete. And as I began my journey, I found that any label that I had became a filter. And I've got to eliminate I want to use my labels and I want to use my words to keep myself and my family safe, but I want to sit down and let all that go and really move to my higher self. Okay? So let's discuss a couple definitions that can be helpful. You guys have been studying this. We've been studying this on our Tuesday night. Meditation, and this is just one definition. You may have a better one, is a practice where an individual uses a technique. I've got to move my thing here. Such as mindfulness or focusing the mind on a particular object, thought, or activity to train attention and awareness and achieve a mentally clear and emotionally calm state, stable state. That's out of Wikipedia. It's a good one. Mindfulness is a mental state achieved by focusing one's awareness on the present moment while calmly acknowledging and accepting one's feelings, thoughts, and bodily sensations. And it can be used as a therapeutic technique. And we're doing great on our Tuesday night meetings, really presenting all that. Here's my question for you. When I say train my attention and train my awareness, my question is to what? If I'm just training my awareness on my labels in my brain, I'm going back to the past. And my other question is, what is the present moment? Where is that? And we're going to be talking about that specifically tonight. Mindfulness can be about breath, body, sound, thoughts, feelings. But my question again is, what determines what is predominant in my awareness? That's the problem. That's the part that keeps me trapped in my brain body. And I want to move out of my brain body and move into mind or consciousness or whatever you call it. Now, here is a really helpful definition. I haven't heard these on any of the conversations. Having studied and gotten certified as a clinical hypnotherapist back in the 80s, hypnosis is a human condition involving focused attention, reduced peripheral awareness. In other words, we get rid of all the distractions and we have an enhanced capacity to respond to suggestion. I'm going to tell you that most meditations that I've seen out there are basically hypnosis. What they're doing is they're creating a cognitive loop, like focus on this candle, focus on these words, on this mantra, on this sound, on this image. And the problem with focusing on those things is they all come from the brain. They all come from the lower self. And I want to move up the energy. I want to move up. I want to come out of that brain box. And I don't want to be a victim to my labels anymore. Okay, good. So the goal is now to move from the brain box, the lower self, where you're a witness, a victim, result of karma, and move into a mind at rest state, which is all about bubbles and higher self. right? Cool. You don't let your dog roam around in the street. You don't let your kids roam around the street all day digging through trash and pissing in people's shoes and then expect them to come home and act appropriately on special occasions, right? Same with your brain. The goal is to break the chains of automatic behavior, break the chains of the labels of past experiences. And the Buddha gave us some help. You know, when the Buddha sat under the tree, the Buddha became enlightened. And everybody focuses on the 5 precepts. They focus on may all beings be happy. And then from then on, they debate what Vipassana means, what's Anapana breath. And it's broken into Buddhism and meditation has as many branches as that tree up there. But here's something that most people miss. From the words of Buddha himself, when he sat under that tree, he was determined he was either going to starve and the worms were going to eat his body, or he was going to get enlightened. And sitting under that tree, he removed craving and ignorance for himself. This is about craving and aversion. It's about seeking and avoiding. And yeah, I do believe it's necessary at some level of lower self-existence to seek and avoid. But there's a point where what the Buddha did was his mind pierced the bubble of the universe, enabling him to realize the essential truth of life. And, this was in 625 BC. In 460, Democritus came up with the idea of atoms, right? And everybody thought, oh, well, the Buddha saw atoms. Big debate. But I'm convinced that the Buddha didn't see atoms. The Buddha saw the bubbles. In 2013, Dr. Derek Lineweber at the University of Adelaide took a computer and simulated a cube that's 1/1,000,000th of a billionth of a meter, a little tiny space. He sucked sucked everything out of it, tried to come to a complete vacuum. And in that little tiny space saw bubbles emerging out of nothing. And he saw quarks dancing on these bubbles. And this picture right here is 1,000,000,000,000,000 frames per second. That's how small this measurement is. And you guys, I'm going to share with you a meditation technique that invites you to go small. I want you to burrow in. Think Mandelbrot set. Think burrowing into reality. Not about looking out, but about looking in. So instead of using a Hubble telescope to find the nature of the universe, we're going to use an electron microscope. I'm going to show you how to use an electron microscope on your nose and discover the bubbles of quantum reality. Most of us, we live in our brains. And what does our brain? Our brain is a storage mechanism. You've studied Buckminster Fuller. All our brain does is store. It takes 80 to 90 milliseconds and this is from Joe Dispenza, for our brain our subconscious measures all the sensations coming into our brain body, determines which ones are important and which ones are not, takes that picture and hands it to our conscious mind. And if you're silly enough to think that's really reality, then that's where you live. You live in pictures of the past. And something has got to happen to break that chain. And I'm going to teach you that tonight, I hope. In fact, the question is volition really a thing? Is it really free will? Because right now, neuroscientists are showing that milliseconds before a person has an experience of making a decision, the brain box locks in, reality is created, and then the person says, oh, I'm going to choose this. You guys, I have proof that free will exists, and I'm going to share it with you right now, and I'm going to invite you to test it with me. Are you ready? It's simply stopping. Stopping is the key. Now, you can tell me that my ability to stop is based on my genetic code and my epigenetic code. We can go into a Bruce Lipton conversation and others about how I can make certain choices to turn on certain genes. But I'm going to share with you that stopping is the most enlightened behavior for a human being. And what I'm going to suggest to you is that the more you stop, the better you get at it. Now, yes, you could say, well, my ability to stop is based on my genes. So I'm really a victim of my brain no matter what. But I'm going to share with you that, like when I went to my first Vipassana for 10 days, for the 9-day vow of silence, my ability to stop was not very good. But as I went back and as I sat every day and as I practiced stopping, my awareness seemed to expand, and I no longer relied on my pictures of now. And the space between my pictures got bigger and bigger and bigger. And what I'm saying is I drilled into a quantum reality. So the idea is that to become the observer, we find the space between the nows. So when Eckhart Tolle talks about being in the now, that's nice, it's good advice, but to me that's being in your brain. We've got to get out of the brain. We've got to move from lower self to higher self. And so stopping is the key. And when I stop, I really can become the observer, and I really can become the chooser. Now here's the important part, because we're about to do a practice here. And what I want you to do is, and you can right now experience the breath coming in and out of your nostrils. Now notice that some of those breaths you have a more subtle experience than others. And what I want you to do is to be the chooser and to choose the subtlest sensation. There's a principle that I teach, and it's in other practices too, called solidification. What happens is the brain body experiences a sensation, and then the subconscious translates that sensation into an event. An event could look like a thought, it could look like an emotion, it could look like a behavior. I have a sensation, and suddenly I'm itching my leg. And it's autonomic, it's subconscious, it's an automatic habit. And I'm going to say, stop. During this exercise, if you have an itch, don't scratch it. If you want to sneeze, don't sneeze. If you want to cough, don't cough. Now, I do admit that at first I almost exploded trying not to cough, because that response is so freaking automatic. But the more I practiced, the more calm I became, the more I saw the space between those sensations, and the more liberated I became. I want to teach you that. I want to teach you that tonight. So we're going to find the space between the nows, and we're going to experience enlightenment in 30-second intervals. How does that sound? We're about to do this. Now look, everything we've learned about meditation, it's always very subjective, and they're trying to do the science of it. If you guys have heard of dialectic behavioral therapy, DBT, I've created a dialectic way to observe my experience in my practice. For 10 minutes in my practice every night, I sit for an hour. For 10 minutes on my practice, I do a DBT on myself. And here's what we do. I decide, I sit for 10 minutes in my practice. I set up an interval. Like, will it be 30 seconds? Will it be 2 minutes? My interval is 10 minutes. The goal of Mind at Rest is to sit for 10 minutes and have 4 thoughts or less without falling asleep. That's the key, because most people, when they unclutter their brain, bam, they fall asleep. No, stay awake and observe sensation. So I'll have an interval in my 10 minutes, like my first interval. We'll start tonight with 30 seconds. And then, so interval number 1 is 30 seconds. And if I have 4 thoughts or less, I'm going to add 30 seconds to my interval. And now I'm going to practice my second interval, will be 60 seconds. And I'll keep doing that until I get 4 thoughts or less. And then I'll go to 90 seconds, and so on and so forth, until I get to 10 minutes where I sit with 4 thoughts or less without falling asleep. Got it? Now I'm also measuring emotion, sensations that I would categorize as emotions. These are sensations I would categorize as thoughts. Sensations I would categorize as physical response. This is very important, guys, because sometimes the brain will convert a sensation to a thought in order to avoid an emotion. Sometimes it will convert a sensation to an emotion in order to avoid a thought. Sometimes it'll convert a sensation to a behavior so that I get up and walk out of the room rather than contend with that mess that I was about to see. And 90% of this, for most human beings, is unconscious. Come out of that automatic response and observe. I even have a place here where I start counting the number of times when I observe a physical sensation and don't respond to it. Delayed response. So I might have 2 or 3 inclinations in my 10 minutes to cough. I make a note of that. I want to observe my brain, and I'm going to teach you how to do this now. Later on, we're going to talk about the diamond cutter, because this is a great, we're using these principles he built a business from a $10 million business to a $100 million business in a 5 or 10 year period. So here we go. Mind at rest is all about experiencing the bubbles, right? So what I'm going to invite you to do, and go ahead and practice this right now, I'd like you to take your pinky finger, touch the tip of your nose, slide down the septum, that's the skin between the two nostrils, and right at the base of the septum where it connects to the upper lip, I want you to tap right there. Close your eyes and tap. This tells the brain we're not experiencing a label, we're not experiencing a memory, we're experiencing the actual physical sensation of the breath over that particular spot. Tap a couple times, then move your hand away and then breathe slightly hard, like snort or sniff. And feel the sensation of the breath passing over that spot. Then go back to normal breathing. Turn your breath over to your autonomic nervous system and simply observe sensation. Now, for some of you, you're just not in touch and you're not having any sensation. The truth of it is you are having a sensation. It's just that you aren't using a microscope. You're kind of numb. So maybe you want to take your finger and touch the rings around your nostrils. Those of you who've been to Vipassana, this is Anapana breath. This is exactly what they teach. And touch the rings around your nostrils, then pull your hand away, breathe slightly hard, and have an experience of the sensation of the breath passing over the rings of the nostrils. Can you do that? Now, some of you, this may be so new to you that if you just close your eyes and you just experience the breath passing through the nostrils, do that now and see if the sensation is more subtle towards the front of the nose or towards the back of the nose. Your goal is to constantly observe the subtlest sensation. Now, you get so good at this is that as you're breathing in, you may say, I'm experiencing warmth or coolness. The goal is, having experienced that and labeled it, you just allowed for a solidification. Release that and look what's underneath and say, okay, that was warm. What's underneath that? And then if you label it again, release that and see what's under that. So as you do this, you may find that you can actually, while you're breathing in, label, release, label, release, label, release 3 or 4 times. And as you're breathing out, you can label, release 3 or 4 times. And eventually you should get to the place where you just experience sensation without a label. You may have a temptation to say, ooh, that's itchy. Ooh, that's cold. Oh, that's not very subtle. Release the label. Do not allow the solidification. Let that sensation wash over you like water off of a duck's back and observe the subtlest sensation. Got it? Ooh, I hope so. Now I'm going to take it a little step further because I want you to first, when you're looking at that space in your nostrils and you're experiencing that subtlety, first use a magnifying glass. And then as you're breathing in, as you get better, then use a microscope. We're going into the essence of reality. We're going to the quantum bubbles. And everyone will journey there on their own way. And ultimately, I want you to use an electron microscope. And then ultimately, I want you just to experience the bubbles. That's what the Buddha did. Let's do that. Okay, so now we're ready to go. And so what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to, I think I can stop sharing here somehow. I have to find my, there it is. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my timer and I'm going to go for 30 seconds. So if you want to right now, you can kind of close your eyes and notice your breathing. And I'm going to start with a 30-second interval. And the goal here is for you to, for that 30 seconds, observe sensation at the base of the septum. For 30 seconds. If you start to get a thought, breathe a little harder. Interrupt any solidification. No scratching, no itching, no thought, no emotion. Stay focused. Now, if you're distracted, that's okay. If you cough, that's okay. Be totally equanimous. Be totally forgiving and kind to yourself. This is not about torture. This is about awareness. And then we'll try 30 seconds. We'll test 30 seconds. And then if you got 4 thoughts or less, we'll go to 60 seconds. Now, I'm anticipating that this group of people here are advanced people, and it's going to be easy for you to get to 60 seconds. But let's try 30 seconds. Hopefully you can hear this now. Ready? Close your eyes. Now, another thing I found is to cross the ankles really helps because it synchronizes left brain and right brain. Fold the hands, putting the back of one hand on the palm of the other. Sitting erect, do that core contraction. Pull the belly button back towards the spine, shift the pelvic floor slightly forward, and then pull on that imaginary puppet string on the top of the head, straightening the upper neck to the upper back. The chin drops down. Do not smile. No autonomic response. Just observation. Just observe. Observe with all embracing gratitude. Observe with absolute accountability. Okay, ready? 30 seconds. Breathing in, breathing out. Observe the sensation at the base of the septum. Anytime if you need to touch there, and begin. Okay, 30 seconds. How'd you do? So what I would invite you to do at that point is take this little, I'm going to go ahead and in the chat, I'm going to throw in case you're interested, I'm going to throw in the little metric there. So now this was interval number 1. Duration was 30 seconds. How many times were you distracted from sensation because you had a thought? How many times were you distracted from sensation in the nostrils because you had an emotion or a physical response? And if you notice that you were able to delay your response, that you had an itch and didn't scratch it, give yourself a point, right? This is all about a dialectic experience of enlightenment. And if you had 4 interruptions or less, we're calling that enlightenment. And we're going to go to 60 seconds. Got it? And then at 60 seconds, if we have 4 thoughts or less, we're going to go to 90 seconds. And so on and so forth. We may have to drop back down to 60 to get to that 4 consistently. Then when we're ready, we go to 90 and so on. I'm going to, let's go for 60 seconds and just see how you were. Hopefully you've been entering your chat. Go ahead and enter in there. How many times you had? Nothing was in the chat. Oh, I sent it privately to Dave. Dave is the only person. Here we go. There we go. That should go to everybody. I'm so sorry. There we go. So go ahead and put down just the number of interruptions. Keep it simple. If you want to give a bit an elongated thing, great. But just put down your interruptions there. Cool. I love it. C1. You guys are pros. So maybe we should go to 90 seconds. Yeah. I'm seeing 2, 1. We're going to go to 90 seconds. Are you guys good with that? All right. Okay, so cross the ankles, fold the hands, do the core contraction, shift that pelvic floor, pull on the puppet string on the top of the head, the chin drops down, the back and neck are straight. Do not smile. Simply observe. Ready? Breathe in and out. Touch maybe if you want to at the base of your septum to remind your brain body there are no memory here, no labels. It's all about actual sensation. Breathing in, breathing out, and begin. Okay, 90 seconds. I'm going to go ahead and enter that little chart in the chat again. And if you'll please put the number of distractions, you can keep it very simple. Make this simple for yourself. I've kind of made it a science. I've started noticing subtlety, and I wanted to be accountable to myself. Really good, 2 and 3. You guys are great. All right, so you're automatically ready to go to 2 minutes or maybe 2.5. Are you with me? So every night I sit for an hour. The last 10 minutes, sometimes the first 10 minutes, I do this breathing to absolutely neutralize my central nervous system response. Then I do another 10 minutes where I observe sensation, but I allow myself to free flow. It's the most wonderful thing. It's like going to Disneyland, because once you stop all those repetitive thoughts from coming into your brain, visions of the universe manifest. It's like going to Disneyland. There are times when I actually stop my practice and just journal. I've had some amazing visions, but I've also learned to trust myself, that if I will sit for an hour and clear my brain, that the rest of my day will be amazing, that I'll have the appropriate thought in the appropriate moment and I won't have to write it down. Okay, so my intention was now, even though I'm a little bit beyond what time I thought, I'd love to break into small groups, let you guys talk about what this experience was for you, maybe test it in your group, maybe go for 2 minutes or 3, and then we'll come back together and see what you guys came up with. How does that sound?
Okay, excellent. So I'm starting the breakout rooms now.